No.
They floated the idea of this new shore funding scheme. Let me read you guys a title from our team. Let's just play it fast and loose. Guys, let's just talk about what's going on, whether it's in the EU. We'll focus on the EU. If we want to talk about Russia, the US, and anywhere else, as these countries are trying to come to grips with economic fallout of this pandemic. The title from RT says, Solidarity in Action, and they have in parentheses. EU Commission head apologizes to Italy, pledges 100 billion CV relief fund, which may not happen. This is what Ursula von der Leyen said to the Italian people, and I quote, "It must be recognized that in the early days of the crisis, in the face of the need for a common European response, too many thought only of their own ... problems." And so they have rolled out a scheme called SURE, which would provide a total of 100 billion euros, about $109 billion in loans to EU member states to prevent massive layoffs. The Italian government was not impressed. Matteo Salvini was not impressed. And they would like to see a lot more action. So what do you guys think of what's happening?
What is wrong with her? The whole sense of causality is backwards.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Okay? Because there was no action, people had to take action on their own. Get the sense of causality correct. It's ridiculous what she says.
Yeah.
Okay? It's insulting to the Italians and to the Spaniards, in my opinion. I'm sorry, Alex, go.
Yeah, I just wanted to say two things. First of all, this is not yet confirmed. I mean, it's just been talked about by the...
It's an idea. It's an idea.
It's an idea. It's floating. But I mean, the figures that she's speaking about, 100 billion, it's nothing. It's in the face of this situation. It's a drop in the water. I mean, Italy now owes around 150% of GDP. The United States is proposing to spend, was it $2 trillion? $100 billion isn't going to get you anywhere. It's not going to support the European economy. It's not going to support the Italian economy. Germany is spending 10 times that amount on its own economy. I mean, this is presented as an impressive package. It's nothing of the kind. And of course, it hasn't even yet been agreed. If it was 100 billion euros in actual physical aid, say face masks and ventilators and those sort of things to produce it, well, that would be something, but it would still not be anywhere near enough. But as an economic aid package at a time like this is hopeless. It's not going to. I mean, it's not even going to. It's not going to even register if it even happens.
Well, that goes into the category. Something must be done, so they've done something. Okay.
Well, it's an appearance of action. It's like you sort of dress it up. You give a apology which you don't really mean, because let's be quite clear, she doesn't really mean this apology, and then she completely undercuts this apology by offering a plan which, to be very clear, is as yet only a plan. It's disastrously underfunded.
You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig.
All right, Peter and Alexander, I have a serious question about whether the EU is going to break up. Of course, we get very emotional, all of us, about the EU and whether they're going to make it or not. But I want you guys to take a very cold, hard look and try to answer as best you can. Do you think the EU will find a way to get out of this mess or not?
I don't know. I will come back to what we said on a video, that the EU, it has a genius for disastrously succeeding in kicking the can down the road. It has, if it's good at anything, it's that. Having said that, this is a crisis that is so enormous, so existential, that if it doesn't actually crack apart now, the day when it will eventually do so has been brought forward to an extraordinary degree. I mean, I think people in Italy are utterly exasperated. I suspect people are in Spain also, and I think people in Greece too. I think, it's touch and go whether it will survive this. It depends how long this pandemic lasts. But even if it does survive it, it's been gravely weakened and it's lost a lot of friends, remaining friends, which it doesn't have that many of anyway.
The problem is that because of the way the European Union was designed and implemented, is that you cannot imagine a world without it. And that's the poverty of the situation here. Because even if you want to get out, look what happened with Brexit. I mean, the forces against Brexit, against the people's will, I mean, they fought a pitched battle for 3 years, okay? So, I mean, even if you want to get out, there's a lot of forces that will deny you that. So I think, if anything, and the European Union has very little capacity of introspection, in my opinion. Will they take on board what's happening now? At some level, they have to, because they have to react to the public. But it's an ideologically possessed project. It's a cult. It's like a religion. You do not doubt the foundations of that cult religion. And that's what's going to make it very, very hard. Even if the laity, if I can keep using the metaphor, are outraged by it and they start picking up pitchforks. But you're gonna have, the clergy of this ideology within the European Union. They will resist to the very end because that's their very essence. Okay, so it's the inability to imagine something different, and that's the gross poverty of the situation. And the European Union has showed itself bare for that.
Yeah, I think that is true, Peter. Except that it's now even that that fact that it's the status quo is starting to crack. One shouldn't underestimate, first of all, the impact that Brexit has had. I mean, it was a titanic struggle to get Britain out of the EU, but it is out of the EU. And that's a sign to many countries that it can be done if people have to do it. But
but the Romans felt that until the city was burned to the ground.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. But the other thing I would say is, it does seem to me that, and I'm closer to the ground of feeling in places like Italy and Greece. I get the sense that even some of the clergy now are starting to have doubts. I mean, it's all very well having, all your convictions, but when you are yourself in a sense of lockdown, when you're sensing the public order in southern Italy hangs by a thread, when you're sending frantic messages to Berlin and Brussels and Frankfurt for help, and you're getting these kind of strange and garbled messages. I mean, this thing that Ursula has provided is just, if I was an Italian, I would be outraged, frankly, and I would be offended by that apology. So I get the sense, and it's starting to appear in the Italian media, that, as I said, more and more people, even amongst the clergy, are becoming angry and are starting to question whether this thing really works for them. And by the way, and I come back to this, the other side of the story, the other side of the fence, Germany, which I also know well, doubts are spreading there also. They come from a different place, but again, people in Germany are saying to themselves, look, is this really what we want to be? Is this really what, how it works well for, is it really working well for us? The fact of the matter is we have this extremely successful economic model for many, many years, but we are falling behind. We're no longer the great technological innovators that we used to be. We've fallen far behind in IT technology. We're no longer, we're not a significant internet presence. All of those things, and you can see the doubts, and they're starting to affect people in Germany in the grassroots. So I think that the worm of doubt has crept in, even into the most unexpected places. So I'm not saying it's going to collapse tomorrow. It might do. I mean, but we are at a point, perhaps, of no return, realistically.
Well,
Going downward very fast.
Well, I mean, even if there was this kind of collective will at the groundswell that it doesn't work, it would still take a long time to dismantle it. I mean, that's the scary thing about it, is that it is something that moves in one direction, and to be able to undo everything. I mean, I think it was what Norway. They had an association agreement with the European Union. And I talked to a Norwegian parliamentarian, and she told me, she said, it was hard, really hard to get out of that. And, because this was when all Brexit was going on. And she said, I can't imagine what they're going through, because an association agreement is just tenuous, but even then. So again, I'll repeat what I said in the beginning of my answer. I mean, it's almost impossible to imagine something other, because that other has been so totally denied and not part of any kind of conversation.
Well, the EU, quickly to say this, the EU doesn't negotiate. This is a thing that people don't understand about. Somebody once described it to me. It's like putting your money in a defective slot machine. You put your money in and nothing comes out. Varoufakis has recently described this, and he's provided tape recordings of his meeting with Eurogroup ministers. He would just say things to them, and they would just then proceed as if he'd said nothing. The British found themselves with the same problem when they were trying to negotiate Brexit deals. And of course, the Norwegians have had the same problem too, because that's how the EU works. It follows its own tram lines. It doesn't want to move off them. But you have to be in a position of strength to be able to carry that off. If you're not, if you're in a position of weakness, then it starts to break down.